You're listening to Non-Playable Character, the podcast on black film. I'm your founder creator, Mark Anthony Nash, and with me is the lovely Kimberly Gold.
What's up, everybody? This is Kimberly Gold, Black film enthusiast and Chief Operating Officer of Black Vegan Social.
I want to talk about what this podcast is going to be about. NPC is a way for us to get together and enjoy film. After I get out of work, after I get off of a hard days of work, I like to escape a little bit and watch a film. And then I like to go to podcasts, YouTube, and hear about what other people think about it, just to kind of get on that shared experience. You know what I mean?
I feel you. I feel you.
But I don't think there's a lot of I don't think there's a lot of attention paid to just black culture. We talk about like the Last Jedi. That's the general culture, and we all can enjoy it, and we all can enjoy black culture too. So I hope to use this podcast, me and Kim, to kind of explore and expound on that. And today, what are we talking about?
Today we're going to be talking about Poetic Justice,
Oh my God.
a legendary film, right? So, for those of you who don't know, Poetic Justice is a film written, produced by directed by John Singleton. It came out in 1993, filming in 1992. Second film after the success of John Singleton's Boys in the Hood. So it was it was well received, I think. $14 million budget and grossed $27 million.
It's almost double, and it's doing well. It
Yeah,
did
it did
well.
really, really well. The opening weekend made $11 million. So, and it was number one for its opening weekend. All star cast, right? So I'm really excited to talk about this today. What else is important to know? I did wanted to say a fun fact real quick. According to John Singleton, in '92, when the film was being produced, this was during the Rodney King riots, and Tupac allegedly left the set to go participate in a protest, but always made it back in time
That's Pac.
to
That's I didn't know that, but that sounds
like I was like, of course, Tupac would.
that sounds like Pac.
But that was pretty dope to me.
So let's get right into the plot. We're gonna dissect this thing. So there's the titular character Justice, and she's portrayed by Janet Jackson back in '92 when she was kind of like America's little sister, maybe
I
if you
think
could kind of
so.
put it like
Yeah.
that. She hadn't quite lived up to this Miss Jackson if you're nasty, but I guess that's subjective. She is dating a guy named Markel. Markel is portrayed by Q-Tip, and he's killed violently. This place is the drop. The backdrop for this movie is South Central LA or in LA parts, very violent area. So he's killed right in front of her, very dramatic experience. And another character, her main love interest is Lucky, played by Tupac Shakur. And Tupac Shakur is kind of at the height of his fame at this time. I mean, he's only getting better, but this is his not his first movie, but this is the first of this type of kind of movie for Tupac to do. Maybe the only type of love movie that he did, which kind of subverts narratives. We'll talk about that too. So they embark on a journey from LA to Oakland. And while they go from LA to Oakland for plot reasons, they kind of fall in love with each other. And they connect when they get out of the city, when they have time to think and time to adjust to each other, they connect on about art, about personage, about heart to heart things, not just what they see on the outside. So when they get to Oakland, they kind of break up for reasons, and then they end up back together. But in the
Oh,
end,
the
they end
suspense.
up back together, fade to black. Now, there's a lot of things happening. I just kind of skimmed over real quick just to kind of give you basically they went from A to B and they fell in love. But there's so much more, and maybe Kim can agree. John Singleton makes movies that are comprised of moments. There are so many good moments
There
in this
are.
movie, man. Billy Zane's in this movie. You get hit. Hey, Kim has something to say about that.
I
And,
just I just don't understand why Billy Zane gets so much credit for this movie. So I purchased this movie off of Amazon, and when you purchase on Amazon, he is listed as the third person in the movie.
wow.
I think it's Janet, and then Tupac, and then Billy Zane. I'm like, dude, you're in the movie for like 3 minutes, and we're too busy looking at Q-tips to even worry about you. But I digress. Moving forward.
It's funny because I think Tone Loc deserves a better.
He does.
I
He
give
does.
more Tone Loc
And I
more.
hope we talk about it later, but the relationship between the two fathers, I want to explore that for a minute too.
I do. I want to talk about that. So let's talk about some of the moments that I saw in this film. When we talk about We can even start off with Billy Zane's moment. It's real zany way to open the movie, but it's memorable. It's memorable. They have that little shootout thing. It's like, wow, what's going on screen here? So the source of Justice's trauma is Markel being killed right in front of her. But the moment that's interesting to me, the two parts of this scene is how real it sounded. When they spotted him getting his juju bees and popcorn, how real that conversation was. And even though it's kind of dated, that's 1993.
Mhm.
If you hear him talking, it feels like I'm watching like a 70s movie. Like, look at that jive turkey over there. It kind of feels that way. But it's still very, very real. Like, you feel it. So, but it's very important to Justice's character. It builds up to it. He's killed right in front of her. And before that part, he's trying to, he's trying to get some love out of her, but she's not feeling that. And his reasons was, I love you because you fine. That didn't sit well for Justice. It's not the type of woman she is. He had to hit her with the, I love all that poetry you sent me while I was locked up. When he got into the heart, that's what Justice responds to. And there's some correlation between how Markel approaches Justice at first and how Lucky approaches Justice at first.
I agree. So I thought when I watched the movie, I think it was especially more traumatic for Justice because there was that significant moment in which raw emotion was shared. At first, Markel's character, he was very dismissive, like, oh, because you fine. And he got out the car, had that second of self actualization, turned around and had that moment of openness. So for me, I was like, damn, that had to be really tough. Like, your dude just told you he loved you and, all the right reasons you wanted to hear. You in the backseat ready, and boom, it was pretty tough moment for me. And I remember Janet did a great job because Justice, that look on her face when she realizes before he even knows anything's going to happen, that was some raw emotion in her eyes right there.
Her acting in this was outstanding. This is way better than what she did in the Clumps. I don't know what happened. Like, they must have told her to tone it down or something because I don't get it. She was excellent in this film.
She did. She did. What I really liked about this film is the film is actually very simple. There's so much character development.
Yeah.
You really felt that even in those simple scenes, they were such important moments. You really felt like you understood who these people were, and I really appreciated about that.
Yeah. What do you think about Tupac's character in this? Is this somebody that you would have a beer with? Because I don't know. I don't
No,
know.
I don't think so. I think I no. You know what? I think that should be a running theme in our conversations moving forward. Is this character somebody you'd have a beer with? And my answer is no.
I definitely don't know.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I think Tupac's character is a character that lucky you learn to love him. You learn to like him,
Yeah.
and it takes time to get through that exterior
He
because it's a little rough.
he had a rough outer shell, and he can escape that when he gets out and when he gets out of the city. But when you first time we meeting him, he's meeting Justice and he's propositioning her in such a way. And she plays it. She plays it real hard. Oh, you let's cut the bullshit.
That's one of the best. That's one of the best lines of the movie. That's one of the best lines. And I think for me, Janet Jackson she's the first concert I ever attended. I love Janet Jackson growing up.
She's
I had a picture, a huge poster of her in my room, huge poster of her, and I loved her. So for her, I think that moment when she uses that language that we don't expect out of Janet Jackson, you're like, what? You want to smell my what?
Well, let's talk about that for a second. This is America's little sister right here. That's my parents and their friends call Janet Jackson Lil Janet.
Mm-hmm.
Still call her Lil Janet.
And she's super grown.
Years old.
She's super grown.
And that's how people saw her. So this was a vehicle. This movie was a vehicle to kind of take that step into maturity.
Absolutely.
And you could say it was very successful. 27 million on $14 million budget. You can call that good. So yeah, even when I saw this movie, which I shouldn't have been watching because I was like 8, but even when I saw this movie, to hear her talking like that, it was not so much for Tupac. Tupac kind of lived inside this character. I don't know Tupac, but he played it so naturally. Like, it made me think like maybe this is the way he is because he's very natural that way. But yeah, Janet really surprising. This scene, the other scene where they're kind of getting to know each other with the F you back and forth. Which was, I was like, wow, they go F you up. Wait till we get back to wait till we back to LA. They go F you up. It was it's enjoyable. It just puts a smile on your face. But that scene was very important too because it kind of harkens back, and this is what John Singleton makes it. Makes his mark as a writer, as a builder of moments, because Markel tried that whole "What's up, baby?" That
Mhm.
didn't work out for him. But when he peeled back the shell and got to
Yeah.
something deeper, cut to the scene where they had to go to Oakland and they were stuck going together. When
Mhm.
they're in the van and Tupac's like, "Hey, how you doing?" She's like, what you writing? Stuff."
Mhm.
And like, why you gotta be such a mean?
Can we use foul language in this podcast? I mean, it's our podcast, right?
Well,
So
just to quote what he said, he's like, "Why you gotta be such a mean bitch?" And after that,
it's game over.
oh,
She
it
wasn't
was
having
game
it.
over.
She wasn't having it. And you know, watching this movie, I haven't seen this movie in many years, to be honest.
Yeah.
And the last time I've seen it, I saw it on cable television. This was my first time really seeing the unedited version of the movie. So I was like, man, well, first of all, why was I watching this movie when it first came out? Because I
He was
was
not
hella
watching
young.
you.
And two, I did not realize that there was so much language in it. And it was interesting to me because the word bitch now is
It's
almost
PG.
used as, I don't know, a term of endearment now.
I
And
yeah.
how offended the female characters in this movie got over being said that, being told that word. There's a difference, and I just thought that was really interesting
It's funny
as I
because
rewatched it.
I remember that clearly. When I was a kid, there's a lot of things I can call someone. You're dumb, stupid. But unless I want to have a fight every day with a lot of your family members and all your friends and you, the B word, that was a line.
Yes, yes, you didn't cross that
You didn't
line.
cross that
That's
line.
true. That's true.
So that is context. You have to
Yes.
like watch it. If you watch it now and
You're
you're a
like, why
quote
she so
unquote
mad?
yeah quote unquote a millennial, you'll be like, chill, B, you were overreacting. but it also shows how much of an equal she is. She's not a pushover. But there are contrasting characters in this, and they come in the form of Chicago, played by Guy Tori,
Yep.
and
Aisha, played
played by
by
Regina King,
that's my cousin, Regina King.
the
She don't
great,
know she's my cousin though.
the great Regina King. And she's done a couple of hood movies, if you want to call them that. And what do you think about their arc in this movie?
I think it's interesting to see the two couples work together because they're so different. You think you see Tupac and you expect him to be more like Chicago,
Right.
but you see these two guys who on the exterior, because even in the beginning of the movie in the post office scene, they seem so chummy,
Yeah.
things like,
Much
you
the
know
same.
and
Yeah.
but then as the movie builds, you're like, oh man, these guys are totally different
Right.
characters, totally different.
Right.
And I like the contrast of both Aisha and Chicago to Justice and Lucky.
Right. Right. And I think the contrast is superficial, relationships, because the only reason Aisha and Chicago are together is for superficial reasons. For her, he provides her some type of luxury. For him, it makes him feel like a man, and John
Hmm.
Singleton represents that because he's always brushing his hair.
Yeah.
He's always
Yes.
checking
Oh
his
my gosh, I was
clothes.
so done with that damn brush.
And I brush my hair a lot too, and I can see people looking. It's not because I'm vain. It's just because I pay for this. So I'm trying to. But yeah, he's a very vain person.
And Aisha was definitely wrapped up in alcohol,
Oh man.
like way over the top. Um, it's to me it's iconic to see the scene in the post office vehicle. What are those things called? Whatever. In the mail truck.
In the mail truck.
In the mail truck where she's mixing the drink and she's like, drink this, because she wants to add more to the bottle, and he's making these funny faces or whatever. So I'm like, man, she's pretty hardcore. And throughout the movie you almost always see her attached to a bottle.
Right. Right.
So I thought that was something to know about her character.
That was the truck scene that you remember the most. Brilliant. Oh yeah.
Well, because I saw it and I was like, damn, she a G.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. I think we'd be remiss not to mention that Maya Angelou is in this thing, and she is the director's voice.
Yes.
There's really no reason for that scene, and it's kind of out of place. But I mean, just from a narrative perspective, but she's a device. She just the director's voice, his
Mhm.
commentary about how young people, if you want to say young black people, interact and the responsibilities they have, and the type of life that they have to live. They have to deal with responsibility.
I think well, I have to be honest. I didn't even remember that she was in the movie.
Right.
So
Right.
when the family reunion scene came up and we get introduced to Aunt June, I'm like, Maya Angelou's in this movie. I mean, I know that, and for those of you who don't know, all the poetry featured in the movie is hers, and
She's
so
good.
I knew that, but I didn't realize that it was Maya Angelou in it. So I was more starstruck now, being older and understanding and appreciating who she is versus when I was a young girl. But you're right. The scene was a little bit out of place. There were a few scenes where I was like, I don't really understand the significance of it, but we'll go with it.
I totally agree, and I think that's kind of like the B plot of the movie. So the plot of the movie is if you go through trauma, if you're having a hard life, you'll be better off if you have somebody else to work with and live it together and try to do the thing together. And that's a very hopeful thing. The cousin dies. That was his
Mhm.
only outlet. But instead
Mhm.
of selling the equipment, Tupac says, "Give it to me. I
Mhm.
will become Tupac." He didn't say that, but but something like that. He's still hopeful, even in the face of tragedy. And what I think is really important at the end of the movie, Justice comes to work and she's wearing light clothes
Yes.
and she's
It
got a smile on.
there's a transformation that
Just
happens.
a transformation. But this is before Lucky comes in.
Mhm.
That means she chose to be happy. She
Mhm.
chose to let that trauma, let it go, to process it, and to move on. Then Lucky came back. He was kind of incidental to that, not the cause of.
Right,
And I,
right.
I really like that. I really like how she was a good foil, not a foil, but a good answer to Lucky. So she kind of broke him down and made him a better person
Mhm.
because she didn't bend over and because she wasn't an Aisha who was just arguing with you and just superficial. I really liked it.
Yeah, I think for her character, and I think it's positive for all relationships, honestly, that you're supportive to your partner while still maintaining true to who you are.
Yeah.
Your partner doesn't define your happiness, and I was glad to see Lucky and Justice get back together at the end, but I was glad that she was able to pull herself up and she made the conscious choice to be the lighter Janet, to be
Right.
the happier Janet, or excuse me, Justice,
But
without Lucky's character coming to save the day.
since we're talking about Janet and since we're talking about Tupac, what happened between Janet and Tupac? Are you aware of this?
So, okay, strange things. You remember the craziest things about movies, right? So I remember after watching this movie, because of course, like everybody around that time frame, I was in love with Tupac, right?
Right.
So I remember watching an interview, and he did this interview where he was explaining how for this film they asked him to do like an AIDS test 3 or 4 times. Right, and he said why, and he said, oh well, Janet wants a an AIDS test, and he's like, no, I'm not doing it. So I guess after her people asked him, somebody else asked him, I think John Singleton asked him, and they have all these different people asking him, he's like, listen, if I'm making love to her, I will absolutely do an AIDS test. Otherwise, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was hella impressive for me because one, it showed the kind of the character of Tupac. He
Yeah.
wasn't a pushover,
No.
and it showed that he was educated about AIDS.
Right.
He knew that it wasn't something that was contracted via a kiss.
Right.
So if it was true or not, I heard later that it was a publicity stunt, but even still, I think shame on them if it was a publicity stunt.
It's
And two,
okay.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
But it's still, if it was a publicity stunt, good on him, because if you go watch the interview with Arsenio Hall, you go on YouTube and you can watch it, and this is like the quintessential Pac talking about the whole situation and his other legal troubles that he had on. He had a few, but yeah, it was definitely entertaining. Even 20 years later to hear them talking about it, it didn't make Janet. I don't think it worked in her favor
Mhm.
as far as the publicity stunt. I didn't really feel too good about her. And there was no sex. They had like two kisses,
Right,
and
right.
you know,
And a
so
blanket.
in a blanket. So he gave her like a really nice hug on the beach. I guess that
Right.
represents the sex. Who knows? Who knows?
And I think in it was funny because I do remember also, Tupac saying like, "Oh, I thought I had a friend. We exchanged numbers." And he says that as soon as they stopped filming, he gave her a call, and it's like, "Do do do, the number you have called." And he said that the number changed, and he said he laughed about it, and I love his positive disposition
Oh,
about it, his positive nature about it.
yeah.
But he said definitely, he thought he found a friend, and boop, that got shut down. So
Yeah.
I guess the whole conspiracy theory about Janet and Tupac really making a love connection in Poetic Justice,
No.
denied.
No, she was acting. She should at least got nominated for something. She did really good. I can't think of another singer turned actress off the top of my head that did such a good coming out role. It's a really good thing. But there are also other real life controversies around John Singleton and this movie. So John Singleton's first movie was Boys in the Hood. And if you've seen that movie, and we're probably going to review it on this podcast at some point, that is, like a drama that takes place in the hood. It has social messages in it. This is a love story that takes place in the hood and has
Mhm.
social messages in it. But for some reason, he came under flack. And even, well, Tupac never really came under flack, but they thought it might be risky for him to take on a love role given his persona. But he was happy to do it because he wants to show all the aspects of black life. So what do you think about that? Was this a risky thing for him to do? Obviously it paid off, but
I think it was risky. Coming off of Boys in the Hood, I think it would be expected for similar films to come out. So to go from like true, I mean, I guess both of these films are like hood classics, but to go from Boys in the Hood, it's like a true like hood film, to a love story is risque. It's super risque. And I would like to note that Ice Cube was one of the people being considered for Lucky's role.
I couldn't imagine that.
And me neither. And he declined. He declined because he said he wasn't at that point in his career where he could play a softer role.
Well,
So I think so when I was like, man, that kind of speaks to the era of the film. And honestly, I only think somebody like Tupac could have pulled this film off.
he's a very sincere actor.
Because
So yeah, I think so.
because he was raw,
Very,
and
very good.
you couldn't really typecast Tupac. He was I mean, a lot of people want to say he was a thug, and he, thug life tatted on his stomach or whatever, but
Yep.
he gave you a wide range of emotions,
Right.
no matter what persona he was playing in any film or even in real life.
He was complicated. He was more than you couldn't put one word on him because you might want to say he was an activist. You might want to say he was a businessman. You might want
Mhm.
to say he was a thug, but he wouldn't say that he was a thug.
No.
If anything, check out some of Tupac's videos, some of his dispositions. Even he's real smart, well spoken person.
Yeah.
He was plenty educated and he was, you know, awake. What we call woke.
Woke. He was woke. He was woke before woke was woke.
Yeah, yeah. I would say he invented it, but he definitely was a precursor to it. He was a very, very good person. This conversation will turn into the Tupac podcast.
All right.
So,
But I do wanna go back a little bit in the movie. So Tupac's character, Lucky, we're getting to know him. So first we get to know him. The first time we see him is his interaction with the homeless guy, and he is not having it, right? And then the second interaction is also not positive because this is his first interaction with Justice, and she plays him basically.
plays him bad, real bad.
But immediately after that, we begin to see a different side of Lucky. We see him actually give money to the homeless guy.
Right.
We see him go to visit his daughter, and it took me a second to realize, like, oh, they're not playing. Like, they share the same baby mama for real.
Yeah, that was. Hey, Tone Loc does it. Tone Loc ain't acting, okay?
No.
He's just saying
And
whatever's there.
and I wish we saw more of Tone Loc. It wouldn't have been fitting for the movie, but I would have loved to have seen more of him in the movie.
Well, that's a terrible thing. That's Harry was Johnson. Yeah. Solo was, the fight scene. The fight scene in the apartment was hilarious because
It was.
Tone
It
looked like
was.
he was stumping on cockroaches. He didn't like he was kicking anybody.
But that scene is pretty iconic, and
Yeah.
and for me looking at the film, I'm like, man, that's how people should band together for their children. Granted,
Yeah.
it's extreme circumstances. You
Yeah.
really don't want to fight anybody, and
Yeah.
especially in the presence of your children. But the way those two brothers came together because they wanted to defend their children was pretty iconic for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you do get to see a different side of Tupac right away,
Right.
and you get to see the difference. You see the juxtaposition between Bone and Lucky when Bone just leaves and Tupac is still sitting there trying to like hang out with his kid or whatever. So I'm like, man, John Singleton really built up his character development really quickly, because I think in like a 7-minute time frame, we go from thinking of Lucky as like, oh, some ain't, let me not use these words.
I'm waiting. I'm like, I don't know what she's gonna say. But
We go from seeing.
I know good Nick.
we
got kids next door. That's cheap.
Well, let's just nicely say that he goes from being a character that you think may be the antagonist to, okay, this is a genuine guy. This is a guy that we're going to learn to love in this movie.
Right, right. Just to sum it up, what is this thing? What is the purpose of this movie?
What is the purpose of this movie?
Blunt hit. What's the purpose of this thing? What's the why? I think we're gonna ask that question. We're gonna ask that question of all the movies we review, because we are looking at it from a melanated black brown culture perspective. What is the purpose? Why is this movie happening? I mean, let's look at the context. This thing happens around the L.A. riots. This is John Singleton's sophomore directing, producing, and writing. So he's coming out pretty strong, I think. And what does this movie serve? What do you think?
I think that this film serves to show a softer side of black culture, to show. I think that during this time, racial tension was really, really high.
Wow,
and
really? In America?
Big surprise there, right? Shocker. And I think that a lot of during this time we were being typecast, and by seeing Lucky and seeing Justice, who are in an area in the world that was not seen as a good place, like the reason why a lot of people know South Central LA is because of Rodney King. That's not how you want any part of any city to be remembered. So for me, this film is a softer side of black culture, to show us as real people with a wide range of emotions, to show us as people who are growing, who have to get through trauma, to show us as people.
Right. It is humanizing. It is humanizing. It's give you something to connect to. Everybody knows a Lucky. Everybody know Uncle Pete. Everybody's got an Uncle Pete. If you don't know Uncle Pete, you're Uncle Pete. Congratulations. And so John Singleton's really good at that stuff.
Yeah, and everybody knows a Chicago. Everybody knows Aisha. Everybody knows a Jesse, right?
But nobody thinks that they're Chicago or Aisha or somewhere. Nobody ever thinks that.
Everybody wants to be Justice, right?
Everybody wants to. Yeah, Janet Jackson's a good stand-in for a person, if I can take you. And those are our thoughts. What did you think of Poetic Justice? What were some of your favorite lines or favorite characters? If this is the first time you watched it or the 50th time, let us know what you think. And what do you want us to review next? You can follow us on Facebook at NPC Black Culture. I'm Mark Nash, creator and founder.
And I'm Kimberly Gold, Black film enthusiast and COO of Black Vegan Social. You can follow me at thekoreangold.com or on my Instagram, Korean Gold. The music you're listening to is the smooth sounds of Frank Mocha's Nation Time. Frank Mocha is the percussionist for the Queen Erykah Badu. Make sure you go download his song Nation Time right now. Thanks so much for listening to our podcast, Non-Playable Character. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to drop your comments below.